So former President Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane Zuma's woes are really set to intensify. Well, that is if the UDM, the United Democratic Movement, has anything to do with it. The party has written a letter to the Speaker of Parliament urging her to restart the subpoena process on Zuma JNR, as well as former SAA chairperson Dudu Myeni, to appear before Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises. Now, this follows previous attempts to have the pair appear before the committee, having failed. Duduzane Zuma is currently out on bail following an appearance in the Johannesburg Commercial Crimes Court. He's now, as you know, expected to appear in court once again today. And the UDM believes that now is the perfect time to ensure that he comes to account before Parliament. For more on this, let us now cross to our parliamentary studios. And we are joined by the UDM's Deputy President, Nqabayomzi Kwankwa. It's good to have you, Mr. Kwankwa. Thank you very, very much for joining us here on the program.
Morning, Leanne, and thank you very much for having us, and morning to the viewers at home as well.
Explain to us specifically why the UDM has chosen to write a letter to the Speaker of Parliament urging her to restart that subpoena process to Duduzane Zuma, as well as Dudu Myeni, the former SAA chairperson. Let's start off there.
Firstly, let's say Parliament is empowered by the Powers and Privileges Act, Section 14 of that Act, read together with Section 56 of the Constitution, to summon anyone to appear in front of committees, whether to testify, provide evidence, or to answer questions in the event that Parliament requires more information from that person. So the subpoenas which were issued on Duduzane Myeni and Duduzane Zuma a couple of months ago were actually done in terms of those sections. Now it means that at that time what happened is that they failed to get hold of them. They didn't manage to deliver the subpoenas to them directly. Now we're saying since Duduzane Zuma is actually back in the country and is also surrendered his passport in terms of his bail conditions at the Commercial Crimes Court, it should not be too difficult for Parliament now to locate Duduzane Zuma, subpoena him again, make sure that he appears before the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises to answer to all manner of allegations that have been made and leveled against him in the state capture inquiry. Yeah. And that also applies, obviously, to Ms. Dudu Myeni, who has not appeared to Parliament. Remember the last time she said she was sick, and after that nothing happened. We can't have a situation, Leanne and the people of South Africa, where people can just undermine the authority of Parliament and get away with it, because the implications of this are very serious for the authority of Parliament as an institution, but for rule of law in general in South Africa, because it means in future when you call people to come and account here, when you subpoena them to come and account to Parliament, they can just simply ignore that subpoena and move on with their lives. Yeah. And the problem is that in future what's going to happen, you're going to find a situation where Parliament will want to be strict with some of the people because they are not connected to a selected few politicians who are powerful. Yeah. It can't be like that. We must all be equal before the law.
So obviously we know that at the time this inquiry was happening, you tried to get subpoenas sent to Duduzane. You tried for the AJs, AJ Gupta, Atul, yes, Rajesh Gupta. All of that failed because they were out of the country.
Correct.
Dudu Myeni she was given a subpoena. Now, just for the layman, if you don't appear once you have been given a subpoena to appear before a portfolio committee, what are the repercussions, if any? Because we saw that Dudu Myeni hasn't appeared. So what happens then?
Well, Section 17, subsection 2 of the Powers and Privileges Act outlines those fines. You will be liable to a fine or a period of imprisonment of up to 12 months, for example. That's what we're working towards. But we want Parliament to actually reissue those subpoenas so that if they are found to be in contempt of Parliament, if after Parliament has reissued those subpoenas to them, then what we'll do, we'll be left with no choice but to lay criminal charges against the two individuals so that we can take the matter and ask for recourse in the judiciary of the country, because it seems like there's no appetite on the part of the African National Congress to reissue, rather for the Speaker to reissue the summons. That's why we've decided to write to her directly, because remember that subpoena can only be issued by the Speaker of Parliament, obviously working via the Secretary to Parliament.
I mean, We've obviously got Duduzane now in the country, appearing in court this morning. Many people saying he's not a flight risk, so there isn't a fear that he's going to leave the country. But obviously your wish is to have him come and answer questions. Are you fearing that perhaps with everything that's happening now, with the case that's currently now before the courts and the NPA now deciding to go ahead and look into this case, this may now bring down the whole state capture saga, or are you trying to keep that alive?
We must keep it alive. Remember, the parliamentary process is separate from the court process that's currently underway. Even though the two processes, one to a large extent, they deal to some extent with the same issue, so they are complementary to some extent, but it's a different process altogether. And remember, you had Duduzane Zuma writing an open letter last year where he made a number of allegations against the current Minister of Public Enterprises, for instance, Pravin Gordhan, where he said he was captured, he alleged that he was captured by the private sector, making all sorts of allegations. It's an opportunity for him to appear before that committee, provide evidence in that respect, and to also state his side of the story, because remember, this is also about fairness, to say allegations have been made against you. There are a number of serious allegations that continue to find themselves, for example, in the media, expression in the media, and people in general talk about Duduzane Zuma and his role during the state capture, that he played during the state capture saga. Now we're saying, give him an opportunity to come to Parliament to explain his side of the story, so that even while the Commercial Crimes Court process continues, he knows that he has been provided an opportunity by Parliament, which has been dealing with this matter, to state his side of the story. Because, remember, Parliament is about that committee. That inquiry is about to conclude its work before the end of August.
Yeah.
It's only fair to ensure that by the time it concludes that process, Duduzane Zuma's side of the story is actually accounted for in the report itself.
Indeed. Obviously, the letter sent yesterday, no reply. Not yesterday, it was sent on the 10th of July, no reply as yet, but you have asked the Speaker to respond speedily. So we'll wait to hear if there is a response. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you kindly. Thank you very much.
All right, that's the UDM's Deputy President, Mr. Kwankwa, talking to us from our parliamentary studios about that letter that they've written to the Speaker of Parliament. Quick break, then your news headlines, followed by sports.